starting with a balance of 1,000 euros, ending with a balance of close to 27,000. Short trades won above 90%, long trades won above 90%, backtest results with no running drawdown because of a tight stop loss, performance up and up. If you have a computer, internet connection and 1 hour of time, then by the end of this video you will have a scalping robot which has more than 90% win rate with a very tight stop loss of 20 pips. Even if you know nothing about coding, MQL language or MetaTrader as a trading platform. We go step by step and these are the topics that we cover. In the previous video we already covered the first 3 and we started coding the EA. Today we complete the coding, execute the EA and apply it to live charts. Without any further nonsense, let's start. Continuing coding from the last video, one thing which we forgot in the last video which we need to collect is also the time at which to start the trading and at which to stop the trading. And the way that we ask that input from the user is by creating another enum because it's not available. So you write enum, I'm gonna call it start hour, and then within the curly brackets we can give our user all of the options that they can select it from. So that's gonna appear in the drop down menu. You will see it in a few minutes. So first one I'm gonna write is inactive and I'm gonna give it a 0, separated by 100 hours, and that's equals to 1. Now to show you guys quickly how it works, I'm gonna create another input variable using the variable type that we have defined here as start hour. So start hour, and then I'm calling the variable itself as sh input. So start hour input, and the default is 0, which basically means inactive. And within the hash, after the dashes, I'm saying start hour, so that's giving the description. So if I compile it now, I get 2 errors, which is there's a colon missing. So I need to write a colon here, and now no errors. If I go back to MetaTrader now, what I will see here is now there is a start hour drop down created, and within the drop down you have the options of inactive, which is the default value, and then 100 hour. That's what we have written here. So we've created a variable type start hour where the options are inactive and we've given it the value 0, 100, which is 1. I'll type in the rest. So now we have all of the hours within this enum that we have created. Now this variable type start hour now has inactive as 0 and going all the way up to 2300, and the value that we're assigning to 2300 is 23. Now if I compile it and go back to MetaTrader, now our drop down menu is going to have all the hours from 100 all the way down to 2300, and that's what we wanted. Now if I go back and create the same for the end hour, which is creating another enum, calling it the variable type name as end hour, and then giving it exactly the same values from inactive 0 all the way to 2300 hours, which is 23. And then we can create a variable and we can call it end hour input equals 0, and we assign it the variable type end hour that we have created in the previous line. So now if I compile it and I go back to MetaTrader, I will see now there is the start time and then there is the end time, and now the user can select, for example, if they want to start at 800 hours and they want to end the trading at 2100 hours. Now after creating these enums and these input variables, we're going to write in the code some variables where we're going to create the variable, but we're not going to ask for an input from the user. These are going to be hard-coded. So the first 2 I'm creating are sh choice and eh choice, which are start hour choice and end hour choice, which is going to come from here, from this user input selection. And because we had assigned the values as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to these our numbers, so I'm creating it as integers. So int, variable type, as a choice, and end hour choice. Then 3 other variables that I'm going to require. The first one is going to be an integer, and there we're going to store the number of bars, and we're going to use this when we're going to create the function for higher highs and higher lows, and you will see how it's going to be used. And the expiration bars and order distant point, these 2 we are going to use when we're going to be sending the buy orders and sell orders. And this is basically going to say, it's like, okay, once we have placed the order, if there are 100 bars that have expired since, then the order expires. and then the order distance point is how far below the order that we're sending the price must be for the order to be sent. You will learn about it later. So this concludes all the input variables and the variables where we're not requiring the input from the users. Now let's go ahead and create a function. We're going to need a lot of functions besides the one that came with the template itself. The first function that I'm going to create is finding the highs. And we come down to the bottom and we write a double find high, and once you start the curly bracket, this now creates a function that we can use to find the highs. Visually, we all know how to find the high. So for example, we know this is a high, this is a high, this is a high, this is a low, this is a low, this is a low. But how do we tell the code that it is a high? One way to look at it is basically for a high, what we go is if there are 5 bars to the left, all of them are below this point, and 5 bars to the right are also below this candle, then this is a high. Now you can say it's 6 bars to the left and 6 bars to the right, 10 bars to the left, 10 bars to the right. I normally find it adequate to have 5 bars on the left and 5 bars on the right. Now how do we tell the code? What we will do is we'll look at, okay, on every bar. So we're going to start from the last bar that we currently have here. So this is our current bar, and we'll continue backwards until we find a bar where we have 5 bars on the right and 5 bars on the left, both below the middle candle. So we're going to be looking at 11 candles at any point in time. So we will start here and then we go look back 11 candles and then see if candle number 6, because that's going to be right in the middle, is the highest bar. If it is, that means that 5 bars on the right and 5 bars on the left are below that middle candle. So we're going to loop from this bar to this bar to this bar to this bar on every bar, checking whether in the last 11 bar the highest bar is the 6th bar. And from here, if we look back 11 candles, then the candle number 6 is right in the middle of those 11 candles. It has 5 bars on the right and 5 bars on the left as lower, so that is a valid high for us. Now how do we write it in the code? First we create a loop, and this is how you create a loop in MQL. So you start with for an integer equals I, starting position at 0 and ending position as whenever I hits 200. So as long as it's below 200, continue to run this loop, and every time increase the value of I by 1 by saying I plus plus. So for the first time it's going to be I is going to be 0, then the codes here are going to be run, then the codes are going to finish, the loop will continue but with a value of 1, then with a value of 2, then with a value of 3, then with a value of 4, and so on and so forth. And then using the I highest function, we look for those 11 bars starting at whatever is the current bar, start 5 bars to the right of it, and then you find 11 bars to the left of that, and then find the high of that highest, and find the highest of that 11 bars range. And if that turns out to be I, then we know that bar is the highest bar in the last 11 bars. So now we can create a variable before this, and we can store the value of the high of our I into that variable, and let's call it high. So if we find the highest bar right in the middle, starting 5 bars to the right of I, look back 11 bars, and then if the 6th bar is, which is the I bar itself, is the highest bar, then we can use this high value as the high, and we have found our high. But just as a precaution, let's create a value double and let's call it highest high, and let's start the value at 0, so that when we start the EA, the highest high value is 0, so that we don't start with a random value. And now if the high is higher than the highest high, meaning that it is a positive number and it is right in the middle of 11 bars with 5 bars to the left, 5 bars to the right, then we can return that high back to our normal coding, that because we have now found the high. And in case if on the current bar I, if this condition was not true, then basically just set the highest high as the whatever is the more or the math max between high and highest high. So whatever high you have found, because you have found the high here for that I, and the highest high, just put the value of highest high to that, so that it has a value now. And in case the loop finishes and we get nothing, then we just need to return a -1. and I have cleaned up the spaces so that we don't have too many spaces in between. Now, one of the things which can cause a problem in this code is because what we're asking the EA to look at is starting at I0, but then we're asking it to start this I highest 5 bars to the right by going -5. So that will mean that I on the first iteration will become I -5, or I would say I minus bars n. So then we have to say here that if I is greater than bars n, because otherwise if I is not greater than bar n, then I minus bars n will become a negative number. So I'm starting with I is greater than bar n. If it is, then you apply this formula, and then if you find the high, if the condition is true, then you return the high. Otherwise, just put the value between high and highest high, whichever is higher, back into the highest high value. And if none of this happens, then just return a -1. This is probably the most complicated function in this entire EA. So if you find it very difficult to understand, then just leave a comment behind. And if there are enough people who did not understand this part, then I will make a separate video to explain how to find higher highs in a much more detail with showing the explanations. Then finding the low is exactly the same function, but in reverse. The only difference, the big difference is with highest high, we started with a value of 0, but with lowest low, we cannot start with a value of 0. Otherwise, any value that the EA is going to find is not going to be lower than 0, so it will never be updated. So we start with a double max, which is the max value within MQL that you can have. It's the opposite of 0 in a way. And then the same thing, we start with an I, and here again I will change it to bars n, because in case if we ask the user to provide the bars value to look for the right and left, the only difference are now instead of mode high, we're looking for mode low, and we're looking for I lowest. The remaining is just simply the same function but the opposite way. One other function that we're going to use is new bar, because we only want the EA to check for conditions or run only when there is a new bar. So we don't want it to run on every tick. Now I have another video which explains the entire new bar function. You can go check that out as well. But in short, what we do here is we start with a static date time of 0. So previous time is 0. Then we look for the current time by using the iTime function for the current period. And then we go, you can actually have it for time frame as well. So let's go time frame, so that if the user has defined it as time frame, then we look for the new bar on that time frame using the iTime function starting at bar 0. Now if the previous time is not equal to current time, because previous time was 0, if it's not equal to current time, so the new time that we are getting on the opening of the bar is different, that means it's a new candle. And if it's a new candle, then we do two things. One, we put back the value of the current time into the previous time, so the next time we come and check, the previous time is already updated with the current time, and then we return a true back so that it's a new bar. But then the next time the EA comes, this bar, unless a new bar comes in, the current time will still be the same as previous time, and in which case it's going to return false. I have a full video in my channel which explains more in details if you want to go check it out. Next function we're going to need is when we will be sending the buy orders. Once we find the high, then we will need to send the buy order on that high. So we're going to create the buy order. And I'm creating a separate function not to put too many codes in one function on tick. So I'm going to create a separate function. When we're going to call the send by order function, we're going to send a value of the entry price point to it. First, we're going to check what the current ask price is by creating a variable ask, by using the symbol info double function which is available in MQL, by sending the value of the current chart symbol and asking for the symbol ask. It will return the value of the ask price as it is now. Then as a precaution, if let's say the highest high is this point, or this is where we are sending the buy order. If the price is very, very close to this, I don't want to send the order. I want at least a 10 pip, 15 pip difference between the point where I'm sending the order. So if the price is currently below this by 10, 15 points, that's when I want to send the order. If it is very close to the price, I don't want to send the order. And this is what we created that variable order distance point for. Remember here we had an order distance point of 10 pips or 100 points. Order that we're sending needs to be above at least by 10 pips of the current price, otherwise don't send the order. And this is what I'm saying, if the ask is greater than entry minus order distance point times points, then just simply return. Don't run any code below, just return from here, exit this. Don't send any buy order. Again here, if the price was here and this was the order send point because it's a high, if the price was here, I don't want to send the order. Then we create a TP point. It's a double variable because it's going to store price point. I'm calling it TP. So TP will be whatever entry point we are sending plus whatever TP points the user has defined. Here in our case, we are starting with 200 points because we're sending TP points as 200, but we cannot add 200 to the price. Euro USD is normally around 1.14. So adding 200 to it will become 201. So we first multiply it by points to convert it into the right decimal system. USD JPY, for example, has 3 decimals after it. GBP USD has 5. So this 200 needs to be converted into that decimal system by multiplying it by underscore point. We do the same for stop loss. So we want the stop loss to be entry minus whatever the user has defined as SL points here. But then again multiplying it by points to convert it properly for the way that the prices are denominated in MQL for that particular chart. We define the variable as small p, so let's change it. Lot size, but for that we need to create another function which is the calculation of the lot size based on the risk percentage that we have defined here. Now I have a full video of how to calculate lot size based on risk in my channel, so do check it out if you want to understand these details. But what we're looking for is what's the risk. So the risk that we want to have is basically risk percentage that we are asking the user to define here. Convert it into a value by using the account balance and multiplying it by risk percentage, divide by 100. Then we collect the value of tick size, tick value, lot steps and everything else. And then we divide the stop loss points by tick size, tick value and lot steps that we have collected here to come at how much money per lot step do we have. And then we can calculate the lots by using the math floor function. So dividing the risk by what we have calculated here and multiplying it by lot step that we have the value from here. Now full details of this is available. If you want to go check out that video, go check out that video. Otherwise you can just simply write these codes here. Then we come back to our buy order and then we say create a variable lots, and we're giving it a default value of 0.01. So in case if the user forgot to provide a value here or put a 0 here, so at least there is a default value of 0.01 to start with. But if the risk percentage is greater than 0, then we want to calculate the lot size by sending the value of entry minus stop loss. Entry is here and then stop loss we calculate here. So we send the difference between the entry point and the stop loss to this function. And then this function calculates the lot size for that percentage of risk, and then it returns the lots back, which then is stored in this lots. We don't want our order that we're sending to remain there on the server forever, so we need to set up an expiration time. So we create a variable type date time and a variable expiration, and we send it the value expiration bars numbers that we have coded here as 100. So 100 bars from now you should expire this. So we're sending a time 100 bars in the future by saying get the time using the itime function of the current symbol on the time frame that the user has defined of bar 0. So the current bar, get the time of that, and then add to it 100 expiration bars that we have put here, 100 expiration bars. Put 100 expiration bars, multiply by whatever is the time frame. So if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, convert that into period seconds. So if it's a 1 minute chart, then convert it into 60 seconds and then multiply it by the number of bars that we want, and then add it to the time which is the current time, and that is our expiration time. Have everything, we send the order. So we say trade.buy stop because we're sending a buy stop. and we give it the lots value, which is coming from here, entry value, which is coming from here on the current symbol, so whichever chart you've attached it to, with a stop loss value of whatever we have calculated here, TP value of calculated here, then expiration on order time is specified, so that we're going to specify the time on which the order is going to be cancelled, and then giving it a value of expiration. Now, in order to have these trading operations done, what we need to do is come back to the beginning, and we need to reference to a library which is included here, which comes with MQL. In the folder include trade, and it's called trade.mqh, and we reference to it by writing #include and giving it the path trade.mqh. By referencing to this, now we have access to all of these codes that MQL has pre-written for us, so that we don't have to write them and we can just simply reference to it. And we're going to use 3 of them. The first one is ctrade, which is for trading operations. The second one that I'm going to use is cposition info, which is getting, if there are positions open, getting that position info. And order info, so if there are orders placed on the server, getting the information on those orders. And I'm storing these into variables called trade, POS, and ORD. So now, after referencing to all of this and creating these 3 variables, now if I go back down to where we were writing the code, send by order, and just as an example, if I write here again trade, which is the variable that we have created for trading operations, and hit dot, it will open up all of the operations that you can do. And this is the one buy stop that we selected, so buy stop. And then it's going to ask for volume, which is how many lot size, and that we give as lots. That's the variable that we have created here. Then if you hit comma, then it asks you for what's the price, and the price we want to enter is here, entry. Then what's the symbol, and there we say symbol, which is the current chart. Then what's the stop loss, and we calculated the stop loss here. Then what's the TP, and we calculated the TP here. Then it asks for what type of order are you sending, when it's going to expire, and we say it is good until the time that we say it should expire, and then we provide the expiration time, and then we end with a colon. So this is how this code is written. Now I'm going to delete this code, and here we have our send by order function that we can use to send orders. Now let's create the send sell order as well, which is the same as order send by order. The only difference is now this time around we're going to be looking for bid, because sell orders are done on bids. So we're going to ask for bid, and then we're going to say if the bid is lower than the entry plus order distance point, then return. So if the price is too close, so here, for example, here, if the price was here, then we don't want to send the order because the price is way too close. And then TP is this time around minus TP points, because the TP for a sell order needs to be below the price. And then the stop loss is entry plus SL point, because it needs to be above the order price. The rest is the same, except again calculate lot size. Now we're going to have to send a stop loss minus entry, because a stop loss is bigger than the entry. If this is the order point, then the stop loss is going to be above, so it's going to be a bigger number, and TP is going to be below, so it's going to be a smaller number. And that's the adjustment that we're making here, that they have to start with stop loss minus the entry to calculate the lot size. Then we use the same formula for expiration, and now we use trade.sell stop instead of buy stop. We provide the lots, entry size, stop loss, and everything exactly the same way. Now let's compile the EA to see if we have any errors so far, and we do have 2 errors. The first one is the bars n is undefined variable, because it should be bars n. And then the other one is SL point is undefined, undeclared, because point should have a smaller p in it. So if we compile it now, we do not have any errors, so we can continue. Now let's go back up here where we're going to start using the template functions. The first one, on initialization, we want to set the expert magic number of the EA. So we have collected here in the input from the user what the magic number should be for the EA, and this is where we set it up. And the way to do it is basically when you write trade and then hit set, it will be set expert magic number, and then you just provide in the brackets what your variable for that is. We don't need to do anything on the initialization, so we're going to leave it blank, and I'm going to remove these spaces. And then on to the onTick function. So every time there is a new price data arriving into MQL, that's when this portion of the codes are going to be triggered, and this is where we're going to perform our operations. So on every tick, we're going to run the codes here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check if it's a new candle, and this we do by checking if it's not a new bar, then return. So if it's not a new bar, which is basically we're calling for this function that we have written here, is new bar. It comes down here and it checks whether it's a new bar. If it's a new bar, then it returns the value true. If it's not a new bar, it returns the value false. And if the value is false and this sign is not sign, so not is new bar. So if the value comes back as false, which means it's not a new bar, then just simply return, meaning exit the function, don't run anything below. And this is how we create a section here, which is going to be run only when there is a new bar. Then we get the current time, and we do that by creating a variable by the name time, and the type of the variable is MQL date time. And then we say current time, time to structure. It's a way of breaking down the total time into hours and days and minutes and seconds. So we say time to structure, and then we say time current, which is a function available within MQL to get the current time of the current candle. And then we store that value into this variable that we have created. And now if we say int, and I'm creating a variable hour now, so creating a variable int hour now, and now using that variable that we have created here, time, and if we hit dot, then we can get the day of the week, the day of the year, the hour, and the one that we are interested in is finding the hour. And this we do so that we can compare the hour now with our trading hours that we have asked the user to define. So if the user has defined the hour, start hour and end hour as 800 hours in the morning until 2100 hours in the evening, then we say that if hour now is less than the asset choice, so start hour choice that we have created here, then basically close all the orders which are currently on the server and return. And then if hour now is greater than or equal to whatever the end hour choice is, and the end hour choice is not 0, so it's not inactive, because it can also be inactive, in which case it doesn't matter, then close all the orders and exit this function. Which then reminds me, we need to create this function close all orders as well. So let's go down to the bottom, and here we create another function and call it close all orders. So whenever we will call this function, the MQL is going to come here, and it's going to go through again a loop of all the order total. So orders total is how many orders are available on the server currently. -1 because I starts with 0. So if the value of the orders total is 1, then we want to start at 0. And then as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, then continue running and decrease the I every time by 1 until it hits 0. Now order, select by index of I, and then check the ticket number by assigning the order ticket number ticket, and this ord is the variable that we have created here, the C order info. And order info basically brings back all of the order information which is available on the server. So for example, if I again write here ord dot, then all of the information available pertaining to that order is available here. What we are interested in after selecting it by index I is looking at its ticket number and storing the ticket number into a ulong. And then we go if the order symbol, so the symbol of the current order equals to the symbol of our chart, and the magic number of the order equals to our magic number, that means that this order has been placed by this EA because it has that magic number. Then use the trade and delete that order by using this ticket number. Once we have created that, we can come back here. So if the hour currently is before the start hour, then close all the orders if there are any orders, and then return. And if the hour is bigger than or equal to whatever is the end hour choice, and the end hour choice is not inactive, then in that case also close all the orders and exit the function. Now the next thing we're going to do here is, because we did not assign a value to start hour choice and end hour choice, so what we can do here is, before checking this, we say sh choice is equals to sh input, which is the variable here where the user selects which hour, and then the end hour choice equals end hour input, the input that the user selects here. Going back to MetaTrader, here and here. Okay, coming back to our onTick function, if the hour now is outside of the trading period defined by the user, then exit. So if MQL comes down here to this line, that basically means that we are in the trading period, so we can continue. Now let's check if there are any open positions already, because if there are already open positions, then I don't want to send another order. So let's start by creating a buy total variable and a sell total variable, and I'm starting with a position of 0. Then we check if there are any buy or sell open positions by looping through total number of positions, selecting them by index, and then checking whether it's a buy position on the current symbol and using the magic number, because if it is another EA that has placed a trade on the server, we're not interested. We are only interested if it is on the same symbol and on our magic number. Then if it is, then increase the value of buy total by 1 by saying buy total plus plus. Plus plus basically means plus 1. And then if it is a sell type position, then increase the sell total by 1. Now I have a full video on how to check for open positions and open orders in my channel. So if you want to have more details, you can go check out that video as well. Then we check if there are already any orders placed by our EA for the current symbol, because if there is already a buy order, then we don't want to send another buy order. And if there is already a sell order, then we don't want to send another sell order. So we say if there is a buy type order already placed or a sell type order already placed for the current symbol and using our magic number, then increase the buy total and sell total by 1 as well. So whether or not there is a position open or whether or not there is a order placed, increase the buy total from 0 to 1 or 2. So it's not 0 anymore. It can only be 0 if there is no open position and there is no order placed. So if there is no buy position open and there is no buy order placed on the server, and that we know because the buy total is either 0 or less than 0, then go ahead and find the high by using the function that we have created and assign it to a value high. And if the high is greater than 0, meaning it's not an empty variable, then send the buy order and send the value of price as, or entry price as high. So now the code is gonna go to this function we have created here, and here it's gonna use the value high as the entry value to basically send a buy stop for the lot size that we calculate for the entry that we have just found high for the stop loss and take profit that we have calculated within this function. The same is true for the sell, that if by going through these loops, we find that the total number of either sell positions currently or sell orders on the server is 0 by saying less than or equal to 0, then go ahead and find the low by using this function and put the value of that low in a variable by the name low. And if low is greater than 0, so it's not an empty variable, then go ahead and execute the send sell order function that we have created here by using the value of the low and sending a sell stop with the lots that we calculate here with the entry that comes out of here on the current symbol and using our own magic number. Now let's go ahead and compile, and now let's go back to MetaTrader and see if what codes we have written so far, they work. So if I go back to MetaTrader and we have our scalping robot in the strategy tester, If I go to input, all of the input variables that we have defined for the user to select are there. We're starting at 800 hours and we're ending at 2100 hours. Let's start. And it looks horrible with the grids. So I'll go back to meta editor, and on the initialization of the EA, I will remove the grid by saying chart integer grid as false. I hate these grid lines. So I'll compile it again. And now we go back to MetaTrader, and if we start the test again, now we don't see the grids. So now at this point the EA has started, but because it's 4:50 in the morning, the EA is not doing anything. So we wait until it's 800 hours, and around at 800 hours it will start to place the buy orders and the sell orders. Now what we see is it has placed the buy order, and the sell order has been placed at this value, and the buy order has been placed at that value. So the first time it could find, looking backwards, it could find this point as a point where there were 5 bars to the left and 5 bars to the right. And at this point it found 5 bars to the left and 5 bars to the right. So it has placed the buy orders. Now the only thing that the EA still does not have is once the buy order is triggered or the sell order is triggered, and we go into profit, then we want to trail the stop loss very, very aggressively. So now let's start building the trailing stop as well. So I go back to MetaTrader, and now we need to write a function for trailing the stop loss. So let's come down to the bottom and let's create a function, and let's call it trail stop, and we stop with curly brackets. So all the codes that we're going to write here between these two curly brackets are going to be run whenever we're going to call this function trail stop. We start by creating two variables, stop loss and TP, and these are both doubles because they're going to store decimal values, and I'm starting them with a value of 0. Then let's get the value of the ask and the bid prices by creating two variables, ask and bid, and by using the function available to us in MQL as symbol info double, and then providing the symbol value and asking for the ask price and asking for the bid price. Now we're going to create a loop, and what we're creating a loop for is we're going to go through all of the positions which are currently open by looking at the function position total. So by position total we get the value of all of the positions which are currently open, and we assign it to the variable that we create as I for the loop function, and we say -1 because I needs to start at 0. So if there is one position open, then we need to have I as 0. So I start with position total -1, so it's 0. And as long as I is greater than 0, continue to run this loop. And let's say if the position total was 3, so there were 3 positions open, so the I will start at the value of 2, and then I minus minus, meaning decrease it by 1. So first time it's 2, then it comes back, then I equals 1, then it runs the code and then comes back and I equals 0. As long as it's greater than and equal to 0, it will continue to run on it. Now we will use the variable that we created at the beginning as POS, which is the position information is stored in this variable. We select by index I, and then for that position we get the value of the ticket number. So here we get the total positions and we're looping through those positions. So I is whatever the position number is, so we select it, and then for that selected position we get the ticket number for that position, and we close the bracket here. So I'm going to give it a bit more space. So what we have done so far is we've gotten the stop loss. We started the stop loss as 0, TP as 0, then we got the current ask and bid price. Now we're looping through all the positions and we're selecting the positions by index, and when we select the position by index we get its ticket number. Now what we can start to do is check. We check first if the position's magic number is our magic number, so the position is ours, and that it is on the correct symbol by checking the position symbol and comparing it versus the chart symbol. Now if the position type is buy, position type buy, then we check that if the bid minus position price open, meaning whatever price the position was open, if the bid minus that is greater than what we had defined as our triggering of the stop loss. Remember at the beginning we had the trigger stop loss points as 15. How much the price needs to be in profit before we start to trigger the trailing stop, and how much do we trail the stop loss by. So this is the first one. We say if the current price is minus the opening price is bigger than 15 points, that means now we are in profit more than 15 points, then we take the TP as the position's take profit, so getting the current take profit of the position, but we change the stop loss by saying that the stop loss needs to be what the bid is, what the price is currently, minus the trailing stop loss points, by how much to trail it by. And then we say if the stop loss is greater than the current stop loss of the position, because we don't want to go down. Once we have moved the stop loss up, we don't want to trail it back down. And that by no stupid calculation that the stop loss is 0. So we check that the stop loss is not 0. This sign is not, so it's not equal to 0. Then if both of these conditions are true, then we change the position's stop loss by saying trade dot position modify. And what are we modifying? We send the ticket number, the same ticket number, we send the new stop loss, and we send the old TP. So the thing that we're changing is the stop loss. And then we say if it's not position type buy, then else. If it is position type sell, then we're basically checking if the ask plus trigger point, because now we need to check that the price has come below by more than 1.5 pip than the position's open price. So now we're checking that if ask plus the trigger point, the 15 points, if the ask and I add 15 points to it is still below the opening price of the position, then we're basically 1.5 pips in profit. And then we change the stop loss again. And the way to change the stop loss for a sell position is that we go ask plus the trailing stop loss points. And then if the new stop loss is smaller than the previous stop loss, because we do not want the stop loss to go up, we only want it to trail downwards, and that the stop loss is not 0, then we modify the position exactly the same way as we modified it here by sending the ticket value, stop loss value, and TP value. Now guys, the bracket open and closing is crucial here, so I'm gonna show it one more time, because there are a lot of brackets opening and closing, so you need to have all of this trailing. And then if I compile it, let's hope that I got all the brackets closing correctly. Yeah, it seems like I've got all the brackets closed down correctly. Once again, I'll leave it on the screen, the entire trailing stop code, and let me make it smaller so that it can all be in one place, so you can see all of the brackets and not miss some opening or closing of the bracket. Yeah, so now the entire trail stop loss function is in one place, so you can type it correctly with the correct parentheses closing and opening. So once we have written that, then we go back to the on tick function, because we have now a trailing stop loss function, but we need to apply it on every tick. Now we said if it's new bar, then return. So everything below here is only going to be run on a new bar. So we need to write this above that trail stop loss, because this one we want to check that on every tick, not on every new candle, but we want to check it on every tick. So we call this function trail stop that we have written on every tick before the new bar is checked. So now if I compile it, I have no errors. Now when we will run the test, it will go very quick. So one of the things that I do want to check is that my trailing stop loss is working correctly. So I'm gonna put a mark here and a mark here and a mark here and a mark here, because I want the test to stop whenever the code comes here. So I'll hit the play button, and now the test will start, but the test will stop whenever it will get to that code. So the testing has started, and we've got our buy stop here, which has been triggered, And this is why now if we go back here, what we see here, there is the plus button, which basically means that the price has moved in our direction by more than 1.5 pip, and this is why the code has come here, because before this the code will never come here. It will only come here if this condition is met. So if I hit play one more time, then it goes to the modify the trade, and then if I go back, then I can see here that here our trade was executed, and because the price moved in our direction by more than 1.5 pip, the stop now has started to trail, and it's trailing by 1 pip. Now if I go back to our code and hit plus again, then it just continues, which basically means that here our stop loss was hit, and then the trading just continued. Now let's check it for one time for the sell stop as well, and here I think our sell has been triggered. And if we go back here to meta editor, we see that now the code has stopped on this line, which basically means that there is an open position of sell, and it has moved in our direction by more than 1.5 pip, and that is why this code is triggered. So if I hit plus and I hit again the same button to modify the stop loss and then go back to our test, what I will see is that here our trade was triggered, it went back a little bit, and then once the price moved in our favor by more than 1.5 pip, now the stop loss is starting to trail. If I go back to MetaTrader and hit plus again and then again and come back here, now the price has moved more in our favor, so the stop loss is moving along with the price. So the trailing stop is working. So I'll end the test and I'll remove these blocks. So now what we can do is we can simply go back to the meta editor. Here is our trading robot, and then if I go to inputs, I can define here what percentage do I want. Let's say I want 2%. I want my take profit to be 30 pips. I want my stop loss to be 25 pips. I want my stop losses to start trailing when I am in profit by 2 pips. I want the stop loss to trail by say 10 pips. I want to run it on 5 minutes chart. I want the comments to be my amazing scalping robot. I want the trading to start at 800 hours. That is server time, not your computer time. That is the server time. So you need to be careful about that. And then if I start the test, we should now see the back test as you have seen in the beginning of this video. And if I pull this up, we already start to see the result here. Because it's a 2% risk, so we had a loss. So we had 20 euros loss. I'll speed up the test a little bit to make it a little bit go faster, and then we start to have our profit trades, our loss trades. Currently we are in 23 euros of loss. I'll run it faster. We're starting to get into profits, 129 euros. I'll speed up the test. Test has finished, and we are ending up in total around 4,000 euros of profit, more or less similar to the test that I had run at the beginning. We were running the test on GBP USD 5 minutes from the beginning of 2023 until July the 10th. Now, when you will run your test, because you will be using different inputs, you might get a slightly different results. But one thing which you will see is that your short trades win would be above 90%, your long trades won would be above 90%. You might end up with a different numbers here and maybe in drawdown, depending on what risk percentages you choose, what time frame do you use, what take profit and stop loss settings you use, what time frame do you run it on, and what trading period do you run it on. Normally my advice would be GBP USD and Euro USD to start somewhere around 7 o'clock UK time and finish around 2100 hours UK time. For USD JPY, because the Japanese market work during the night as well, so I would say something like 2 o'clock in the morning UK time until 2100 hours UK time in the night. My default positions are these. These are the ones that I normally use, except for that I use risk as 2%, not 3%. These are the default positions that I had used in my testing that you had seen before. So go ahead, you can run these tests on GBP USD, USD JPY, and Euro USD. Now the last part is applying the EA to a chart, which is once you have connected to your account, a real account or a demo account, whichever one you want, you need to open up a chart, GBP USD for example. You need to open up algo trading, and then you need to bring your expert to the chart. You need to allow algo trading here as well. Then you go to the inputs tab, and in the inputs tab you have all of the user inputs that you can provide. Say you want to start at 800 hours on GBP USD and you want to end at 2100 hours on GBP USD. You want the EA number to be this. You want the time frame to be 5 minutes. And then again, your take profit is stop loss. How many points do you want to trail the stop loss, and how much in profit do you want to be before you start trailing the stop loss? And then you click OK, and then your EA is applied to the chart, and it will start to trade during the trading hours that you want it to trade. I'm going to remove it because I'm already in a live environment and I don't want to apply it in that live environment. So this is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll combine both the parts into one part and release it again so it can be in one place. Please leave me a comment if there is anything which you did not understand, if there is any part of the code which was complex, if there is any more explanation, and I'll make separate video to then explain that. I will come back with more variations of the EA, again depending on how much you like it. It can also be applied to Bitcoin, oil, and stock indices with certain tweaks that we will need to make in the code. So I will come back with more videos on what tweaks to make in order to apply it on those charts. There are some coding changes, but the base will remain the same. So until next time, guys, stay safe, trade safe.